G'day team, here I am with Tennant Reed. We've decided that the walkie-talkies are getting a little bit passé, and we haven't actually seen much green over the course of the last 5 days.
No, not a lot.
So we've come out here to sit under a tree and reflect on what's been going on the last couple of days. So Tennant, what's been occupying your time and attention at COP over the last day or two?
The Saudi green domes were quite green, but not in a living things kind of way.
That is true. I didn't get anywhere near them. They're sort of pulsating out in the distance.
They are. Yes, they're full of energy. I've seen some great stuff in the last day or so.
Yeah.
I've seen great stuff on carbon border adjustment mechanisms.
Well, you have delivered great insights on carbon border adjustment mechanisms, no?
There were great insights left and right. That was an all-star team of panelists from Europe, from the United States, talking about different aspects of CBAMs, from China, and there was me. And I learned a lot in that panel, and I am a great big CBAM nerd, so it's a good one.
I will admit something to our viewers, which is that I left the Australia Pavillion, went looking for your CBAM session because I was quite looking forward to it. Wandered around for a good 20 minutes, returned chastened back to the Australia Pavillion to do some work because I couldn't interrupt you mid-stream to find out where the hell you were.
Nobody could. It's just impossible.
Only to discover, after seeking some guidance from our friend Anna Freeman, that the Moroccan Pavillion that you were speaking at was literally 3 pavilions away from the Australian Pavillion.
Yeah, it's very close.
Walked straight past it several times.
I thought it was so close as to be obvious. But that's, COP all over.
We're all a little bit tired. But what I will say is that arriving to the rapturous applause at the end of your session, while disappointing, I did get to view the warm glow coming from you, Tennant. You were so happy.
I was. And among the things to come out of this session was state of play with the European Union's trilogue process for finalising CBAM. They're getting close. We reckon it's going to be done by the end of December. There's probably not going to be a export rebate, but there will be probably a slower handoff for free allocation to CBAM. China heading towards maybe bringing iron and steel into its national emissions trading scheme in the next couple of years, but probably not gonna get a discount at the border into Europe for those exports. But Chinese entities not too worried because China's covered exports are only about 1% of its exports. There's just so much gold in this session. And I recommend that you check out my extensive notes at Tennant Reed on twitter.com.
There is a very good little Twitter thread that you can catch up on, everybody. Well, I mean, I think there's...
What did you see? You were present for a very good session yesterday.
That's true. Well, we both were. So on the podcast that we do with Frankie Laskovich, back on, I think, episode 11, the most recent episode but one, we'd had a cracking conversation about this paper out of Oxford on learning rates and the role that they play in driving down the cost of particularly clean technologies in our area. So solar, wind, batteries seem to be following a similar trajectory. There is some intimation that electrolyzers may well, although that story is yet to play out fully. It's a really solid paper and a strong rebuttal to some of the methodological approaches that have been the norm in other modelling exercises like integrated assessment models that have really driven a lot of climate policy. I'm not going to go into that. If you want literally hours and hours of critiques of IAMs, I will direct you to our podcast. Let me point was cracking paper, and one of the lead authors gave a presentation at the China Pavillion, which was outstanding. It was followed by a really great panel as well.
Yeah, there were people from the Biden administration talking about how the Inflation Reduction Act embodies some of the ideas in this paper, that they wish they'd had the paper a year ago or more when they were framing a lot of these provisions so they could make that case even more strongly. And we had, I think, the best but nichest joke that I've heard at COP so far.
So I'll set this up. We obviously are interested in this kind of rollicking debate about the future of IAMs, and so I couldn't resist. I did ask the good professor and the rest of the panel, what his work meant for the future of IAMs. To what degree do they invalidate them? What role they have in the future? And Tennant, what was the response from the panel?
The panel said that integrated assessment models are stranded assets and that there needs to be a just transition for their designers into more productive new careers in other sectors.
Tennant and I were in the front load pissing ourselves. I don't think that many other people in the audience got it, or maybe we're just more expressive of our response to this awesome joke.
And it was, if you're watching this video thinking, was that an awesome joke? Yes, it was.
We're still laughing literally a day later.
Gold. Champagne comedy.
All right, well, maybe we round this out with a little update. I know you've been following the Article 6 negotiations pretty closely, and we've had some conversations with folk that are pretty close to the negotiations. What's the latest, Tennant?
Well, Article 6 is a topic, so this is the rules around international cooperation on mitigation through carbon markets or through non-market approaches. And this is an area that it inspires a lot of strong feelings. People get very excited about the potential to increase ambition by making it cheaper to meet that ambition. People get very worried about the potential to undermine ambition through fake hot air credits being double counted and what have you. But the somewhat grounding reality of where the negotiations are at the moment is that they are in a very boring, very technical, minutiae crawl into the next layer of detail from what was agreed in Glasgow. And even people who are much bigger enthusiasts on this stuff than me, when asked, are saying, well, it's a bit of a slog. Maybe you'd be better off focusing on what's happening in the national pavilions, where they're outlining, the Democratic Republic of Congo is announcing a major initiative on forest carbon into carbon markets. So it appears that the atmosphere is good among the cognoscenti who do these negotiations. There was a terrific update from the Australian delegation, who are a long-standing, well-respected part of these negotiations, on where they're at. But it's going to be... These new markets are not going to be stood up this year. They're not going to be stood up next year. The aspiration of the carbon market vanguard is that they be fully operational sometime in 2024. So a lot of water left to flow under this bridge. And speaking of flowing water...
Oh my God. Yes, that was quite something yesterday. There was a latrine malfunction. Is that the technical term, Tennant? But no, that doesn't sound like that big a deal.
A sewer malfunction, I think.
I think a latrine malfunction on an epic scale. There's the two big buildings. There's like the main thoroughfare through which you exit the blue zone, and there was a raging river of, dare I say, piss flowing outside one of the main buildings.
With plenty of solids.
Yeah, it was rough, team. Yes, the effluent was out and about. They did manage to clean it up relatively quickly, but it wasn't fun, Tennant.
No, and traces linger,
yes,
even now. Along with the fear that this was not the last time that a river of excrement is going to flow, literally, not just figuratively, at these negotiations?
The roiling fear. Well, look, I think we've given them a visceral sense of what we're dealing with here, both the highs and the lows. Tennant, and tomorrow is decarbonisation day, which I've been looking forward to. And you might think, well, decarbonisation, that's kind of what it's all about, isn't it?
Every day is decarbonisation day.
I think there's a bit of a focus on hard to abate sectors in some of the programs that I've been looking at, which is looking at some of the, I guess, the innovation that we need to drive, so that, you know, while we're dealing with some of the sectors where we have the technological solutions, you know, residential and commercial buildings, for example, we need to invest in that innovation agenda. Our friend Darren Miller, we just had lunch with Darren, who was off to do a session on green steel. That's going to figure fairly prominently. I think other sectors that are regarded as hard to date, like cement, well, there's going to be a bunch of sessions on those, so perhaps tomorrow we can report back on that, Tennant.
Indeed, and there's a cracker of a session tomorrow morning, 10:30 Cairo time, on cross-sector collaboration. How can we be together for implementation?
And who would be in that session, Tennant?
Well, why, you would, under the calm moderation and stewardship of me.
That is true.
But with an all-star cast of Australian organisations, NGOs, institutions, talking about different ways in which people in different parts of Australian business and civil society and government have been working together over recent years to get stuff done, even when at times the political environment was pretty difficult for getting things done. And there's a lot of different good stories there, and a lot of very big challenges in front of us to confront together.
For implementation?
Oh.
I felt like I was just hanging there. It's probably not a bad moment to say, well, I understand these sessions aren't being live streamed, which is probably for the best, because many of them would be in the middle of the night, but they are going up online.
Yeah.
And so we'll be able to link up that session. And if you're interested in what's happening at the Australia Pavillion, there are a whole bunch of sessions with all kinds of luminaries that are taking place over the course of the week. All right, that kind of covers it.
I think we've covered it and then some. Who knows what will have happened the next time one of these videos goes out?
Indeed. All right, thanks, mate.